Hi there, me again. Have you ever developed and scanned a roll of film and gone back and noticed in all of your photos from that roll there's a strange, clumpy texture? Well, that happened to me for the first time recently with a roll of Tri-X that I shot in Kansas City with my buddy Gio. And after I got the results scanned and developed, I noticed that there was this weird uniform texture on all of the photos that almost looked like a dry riverbed. And after some research, I found out that that is called reticulation. So today we're going to be talking about reticulation, what causes it, and some things you can do in your development process to hopefully keep it from happening. So let's get into it. So, before I dive into reticulation, let's talk a little bit about film and what happens to film in the development process. So, essentially, at its core, film is a light sensitive gel emulsion that has a bunch of silver halide crystals in it, and that gel emulsion is on a clear base coat. And once you start developing film, that gel layer kind of expands as it's taking up the developer. And that's where we run into the most common cause of reticulation, and that is rapid temperature shifts. And I think this happens most commonly when you're going from something like a developer that's too hot and rapidly cooling it down. And what that does is it causes that gel emulsion to go from expanding to quickly contracting and causing those silver halide crystals to clump together. And the best way to fight that is sticking as close as possible to the manufacturer's recommended temperatures for developing with whatever developer you're using. The second potential cause of reticulation is pH balance shifts. And I think this is actually what happened to me. I was using Cinestill's DF96 monobath, and it was pretty close to the end of its life. It was pretty cloudy and starting to turn brown, and I was honestly worried that I wasn't going to get any results at all. And I think on top of that, the monobaths in general suffer from reticulation a little bit more commonly than other developers. But yeah, pH balance shifts can cause reticulation, and essentially that happens when your chemicals go bad or start to oxidize. So the best way to avoid that is to take note of when you mixed your developer or when you opened it and how many rolls you developed with it so that you don't overdo it with that batch of developer. The third cause of reticulation that I found in my research was using distilled water as your final rinse. Distilled water doesn't have any minerals or anything in it, and that can essentially shock your film as well in the development process, and it can rapidly evacuate the developer from your film, causing those crystals to clump. I actually use distilled water in my development process once I'm towards the end, but the difference is I use tap water to rinse off the chemicals before I use distilled water to keep water spots off of the film. So, in summary, basically use the manufacturer's recommended temperatures to develop your film and try not to rapidly shock your film with temperature changes or pH balance shifts, and you should be all right. So, my entire development process essentially looks like this. I take my Blix and my developer and I heat them up to the developer's recommended temperature of 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I take them both out and let the Blix start to cool while I develop. That way the Blix is a little bit cooler than the developer. And then I rinse my film off in tap water, which I try to keep around 82 degrees Fahrenheit, which is slightly cooler than the Blix has gotten down to. And then I rinse my film off with distilled water, which is room temperature, which is slightly cooler than the tap water I was using. So essentially, my film is cooling down a little bit with each step in my development process. So that's about all I have for reticulation and how to try and avoid it. Honestly, though, the results that I got from my roll of Tri-X, while they might have a texture that makes them look a little bit like Jar Jar Binks, they still look pretty good. They're plenty sharp and the contrast is good. The exposure is still good. So I think even if you do reticulate your film, it's not the end of the world necessarily. You just might have kind of a unique look. And honestly, if I could figure out a way to get my film to reticulate consistently, it might be a tool that I could use if I wanted it for a specific project or something. So that's about all I've got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it useful. And definitely stay tuned because I've got a couple of cool trip videos that I'm working on right now. I've got some 8mm film that's off in the lab. I've got some rare cinema film that I shot in stills recently. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming up on this channel. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.